The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports and Comcast, connecting Virginians to their government. And let's connect you with Senator John Edwards. Good to see you, sir.
Thanks, Woody. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Give us a little bit about what's going on back home in terms of the economy, jobs, and other items of interest.
Sure. Well, I think the economy is picking up. It's slow. But one of the things that's making it pick up in our region, of course, is Virginia Tech. They're going terrific. They're doing a lot of research. In fact, I put in a bill $1 million request for the Virginia Tech Carilion Research Institute that is studying the brain. In fact, this is going to be a nationally recognized research program on neurology, dealing with issues like autism and Parkinson and PTSD, other issues regarding the nervous system, and in particular the brain. So,
and of course, there's a medical school there now.
They have a medical school there, Virginia Tech Carilion School of Medicine. The first class will graduate this May. This will be the fourth year. About 40, 42 per class, I believe. And the students are fantastic. And they could have gone anywhere. The resumes of these students are just unbelievably good. And so that's helping to kickstart the economy. And of course, as I mentioned, there's the Research Institute at the Virginia Tech Carilion Research Institute, but also at the what's happening at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg. I mean, this is the driver of our economy, along with the healthcare systems in our region. We can talk about that a little bit later, and the importance of the Medicaid expansion to our healthcare system, the Carilion system, and of course HCA, Lewis Gale. These are very important to the New River Valley and to the Roanoke Valley.
Speaking of the Roanoke Valley, what about passenger rail?
Oh, we're really excited. The Governor McDonald, before he left office, signed an agreement between the Department of Rail and Public Transportation and Norfolk Southern to provide, I think it was $92.7 million to upgrade the line between Lynchburg and Roanoke. And of course, then we're not going to stop at Roanoke. The next step would be to go on down to Radford, Christiansburg and Radford. Okay. So the New River Valley will be tied in to Amtrak. Imagine getting on the train in Radford or Roanoke, say, and same seat, and going to sleep, waking up in Boston, for example. That's terrific. Just terrific.
And how is the Roanoke Higher Education Center doing?
Oh, the Roanoke Higher Education Center is just doing great. In fact, this year I've put in a budget amendment for $3 million to expand the Culinary Arts Institute. Virginia Western Community College provides this terrific program to become an associate's degree, become an executive chef, by going to the Culinary Arts Institute, which is at the Higher Education Center. We rehabbed the old Henry Street buildings back in '08, and it started the program then, and it's growing like gangbusters. It's just terrific. It's extremely popular. So I put in a budget amendment for $3 million to expand the physical plant of the Culinary Arts Institute. So the Higher Education Center is doing great. It's the study we did a few years ago shows it has a $32 million economic impact in our region.
$32 million?
$32 million economic impact because of what we're doing at the Roanoke Higher Education Center. I'm very proud of it.
And I know crisis intervention has been part of your agenda for a number of years, and that fits hand in hand with the reform effort that's going on right now as a result of a tragedy one of your colleagues suffered.
That's right. The CIT, or Crisis Intervention Team program, started in the New River Valley with the localities, and I've been putting in legislation to expand it as well, and that has been remarkably successful. I would say close to 2/3 of the localities in the Commonwealth now have crisis intervention teams. What this is a program to train police officers and deputy sheriffs to how to deal with somebody that they encounter who has a mental condition, and to be able to detect signs and symptoms of mental illness, so that rather than hauling them off to jail, they're taken to an appropriate mental health facility for evaluating and treatment. And so that has been a tremendous benefit. The law enforcement community has embraced the CIT, Crisis Intervention Team program, extremely well. I'm very proud of how that has really made a huge difference, not only in the Roanoke New River Valley, but also throughout the Commonwealth.
And of course, this is something that is significant in terms of some returning veterans who suffer from mental illnesses.
Absolutely. There are more veterans, I forget the figure, I've heard different figures of how many that have come back from combat that suffer some form of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's an unseen traumatic illness that they come back with. Sometimes it doesn't manifest itself for years later. And so it's something we need to be attuned to. The Wounded Warrior program that I've been working on too, to provide funding for our veterans who have suffered illness, and including PTSD. It's a huge problem among many of our veterans, and we need to be sensitive to these issues.
And what about creating opportunities for those returning veterans to get involved in small businesses, creating entrepreneurship opportunities?
Absolutely. We have a program, the Governor McDonald, instituted a program which has been very successful with regard to linking up employers with veterans. In fact, we had a program at Virginia Tech that I spoke at last year about encouraging employers to hire veterans and using the skills that veterans have obtained through the course of their service to our country. It's remarkable the kind of skills that they have. And often employers overlook these skills and this kind of training that can be very beneficial to employers. So we're encouraging employers to hire veterans when they come back.
So workforce training for those veterans at the community college level.
Well, that's available too. You know, we have assigned the workforce training programs to the community college system in Virginia. One of their particular goals and their particular purposes is to train people to get jobs in the community. And the community colleges are working with local employers. In fact, the Roanoke Higher Education Center too, we offer bachelor, third and fourth year of college, master's degrees, in 3 MBA programs, for example, and even a PhD program. But we also offer workforce training programs through the community college system in particular, and through other programs. But the community colleges, one of their purposes is to make sure they're providing the training and the skill sets that people need in the economy that's in our region. You know, today, unlike, say, 50 years or more ago, a person really cannot pull themselves out of poverty unless they have some kind of skill set, some kind of training. And you don't need a PhD, you don't need a bachelor's degree, but 2/3 of the jobs will require an associate's degree. And so we're encouraging more and more people to go to community colleges, get the kinds of training, whether it be computer training or it could be training in the healthcare fields, in the legal field, paralegals, for example. There are a lot of fields that do require some kind of associate's degree or some kind of training and skills that the community colleges in Virginia are offering. So that's extremely important in terms of our economy, to make sure people, and to give the opportunity to people to make sure they have the skills that they need. And, you know, it doesn't matter how old you are. You can go back. And the community colleges frequently get people who have been out a while, who want to go back and get some particular training to advance their career. And the studies show that if you get an associate's degree, you're going to make more than if only a high school degree. Likewise, if you get a bachelor's degree, you'll make more. We did a study at the Roanoke Higher Education Center, and I forget the exact figures, but 15,000 or more than if you get a bachelor's degree than, say, an associate's degree. Don't hold me to those figures, but it is significantly higher in terms of your income if you get an advanced degree. So education, I think, is really the key to the future.
Now, what about those students who graduate high school and don't want to continue any further? What about some emphasis on vocational education? Exactly.
That's extremely vocational, career training type programs are important. But a lot of people that graduate at 18, they don't want to go to school. And, you know, it takes a while to grow up, too.
Right.
When they get to be 28, maybe 32 or something, they realize, I need to go back. And so that's, again, why the Roanoke Higher Education Center is there. That's also why the community colleges are there. Come on back. You need more skills. You need more training. come on back, and that will improve your opportunities in terms of your employer opportunities, employee opportunities, and in terms of more income, frankly.
And of course, once they mature, they can take advantage of our 2+2 program and tuition assistance grants.
Well, as a matter of fact, we have a number of programs. One, which I'm very proud of, that I worked on, is in place now. If you go to the community college your first year, and you apply to get into, say, Virginia Tech or Radford, a four-year school, and you take the courses you need, and you get the grades you need, then you can go to your third and fourth year of college with a lower tuition than if you went directly to college, to a four-year college. So the idea is to encourage people to go to the community colleges first. It's cheaper for you, it's cheaper for the Commonwealth, because community college is just basic education. You don't have activity fees and a lot of other types of expenses. And so that's something that the Commonwealth is encouraging, to keep your tuition down by going to the community college first.
Now, one of the other things that helps to defray the cost of tuition are the fact that there are a lot of out-of-state students.
Right.
There's some complaints that those out-of-state students push away the residents of the state of Virginia. There's a delicate balance there, though.
There is. The out-of-state students do provide diversity, but they also pay a lot more in their tuition than in-state students. And so if we did not take the out-of-state students, the tuition prices would have to go up for our in-state students. So there's a subsidy there that is really quite important to in-state students.
So how has the previous administration's push to graduate an additional 100,000 students focusing on science, technology, engineering, math, and health fared?
Well, it's too early to tell. The idea is to have 100,000 graduates by 2020. And I know the new governor, Terry McAuliffe, is very interested in expanding this. So we'll have to see how it works out. My thinking is we're putting a great deal of emphasis on college education, and hopefully it'll work out. But one of the things we really need to do, and I've been pushing for, lower tuition costs. In fact, I put it in a study. There's a program called Pay Forward, Pay Back. It's out of Oregon. Oregon did this. The idea is to go to college, don't pay as much tuition or maybe no tuition, and then pay it back after you get out. A certain percentage of your income once you're out of college. We're working on the details as to how that's going to work. We, of course, we've got to make sure the colleges get paid up front, because they don't want to wait and get paid later. But it's kind of a scholarship type of a program. And, you know, the military does that. You go to some military school like BMI perhaps, or the Naval Academy, and it's free, but you got to give back. You got to serve a certain number of years. So it's that type of a program to encourage, to make it easier for people to go to college. It's becoming more and more of a burden. The price of tuition has gone up, doubled or something like that in the last 10 years or so. It's something I've been quite concerned about, because we got to make college more affordable and more accessible to more people. And I think everybody agrees with that. The question is making sure we can find a way to do it.
And of course, K through 12 lays that foundation, but what about pre-K?
That's something I've been pushing for a long time. Governor Kane, I know, was interested in pushing pre-K. He made some progress, but I put in a bill to expand the pre-K program. I would like to see us eventually go to universal pre-K for all students at the parents' request. If the parents don't want them to, that's one thing. But we know from studies that, you know, like 90% of the brain is formed by the age of 5, and at age 4, if they can go to a pre-K program and be taught appropriately, they do better in life. They did a study some time ago. The at-risk children in Head Start were studied over a number of decades, and they showed, and compared them with other children, they did better in life, they did better in school, they were less involved in the juvenile and criminal justice system, they made more money. I mean, they were more successful across the board because they got a good foundation at age 4 at a pre-K program. So I think the more we can push pre-K and expand it to more children, the better off the Commonwealth is going to be. So I'm hoping the study will work out. And I've also got a budget amendment to move forward with more pre-K programs.
Great. And as I understand it, the inability to read by 3rd grade is a real predictor of
Right.
negative things to come, including the state deciding to build more correctional facilities.
That's true. There's two things you really need by the third grade: basic math. It used to be reading, writing, arithmetic, and it still is reading and writing and arithmetic. Reading by at appropriate level of at age 3 is very important because, as I've heard it said, until age 3 you learn to read, and after age 3 you read to learn. So it is a basic skill to get any advanced any education past age 3.
And of course, we measure those skills now from K through high school with the standards of learning that are the subject of a lot of discussion this session.
There are a lot of, on both sides of the aisle, a number of bills to reform the SOLs. Let's make a distinction. We've always had standards of learning. That's not the problem. The problem has been the standards of learning assessments or tests. They're high-stakes tests. They mean so much. You can't advance to the next grade unless you pass. It's very stressful to the students and to the teachers. And teachers, get graded on whether or not how well their students do. And so, therefore, there's a tendency to teach to the test, which is not good. We want students, sure, there's things you have to memorize, but we want students to learn critical thinking skills. And we want students to learn the love of learning. Because if you have the love of learning, you'll be a lifelong learner. And that's what we want people to have. So I've been very critical myself of the high-stakes approach to the SOL assessments, the tests, and the way they're done. There's nothing wrong with doing standardized tests, but they need to be used along with other things. I think a teacher, after 8 or 9 months with a student, has a better feel for whether or not that student should be advanced as opposed to just a one single, true and false type of a SOL test.
So I take it then there's a move to reduce the number of those tests. I think they're 34 in number throughout one's career through high school,
right.
And also focus more on critical analysis like that.
Absolutely. Testing is fine, but let's not overdo it. It's more important for the students to be in the classroom, learning the critical skills thinking, learning problem solving, and learning to enjoy learning for its own sake.
Now, to what extent did you get feedback about legislation that was passed last year giving the state the authority to take over a local school district if it's failing?
I think it's a bad idea. I oppose that. Instead, one of the things, first we want to make sure we have the resources. A lot of localities in the rural areas in particular do not have the resources. A lot of them don't do pre-K because they can't afford the match. The state will match it, but they cannot afford that. And I have a budget amendment to try to deal with that issue to help the localities more. And with the economy the way it's been since beginning in 2008 with the collapse of the economy, it's understandable that there's less money. But now the economy is pulling out slowly. We should expect a 2 or 3% increase in the gross national product, and Virginia, I think, will do maybe even better in the next several years. There's no reason we can't go back and make sure localities have the resources they need. You can't expect students to do well and teachers to do well unless they're given the proper resources. And getting parents involved is very, very important. So the idea of the state saying, you didn't do well, we're going to take it over, that is contrary to the Constitution of Virginia, too, because we believe in the local school system, and local schools ought to be run by the local school boards. So I didn't support that bill.
There's also another bill that purports to measure schools on a scale of A to F.
That was a terrible idea. I mean, I don't know if anybody that really, the schools don't like it, the parents, the teachers, how would you like to go to a school that's ranked F? I mean, come on. And instead of, grading the schools and grading the teachers like that, we need to help them, provide the resources and provide the support that they need to do better, rather than just simply saying, we're going to take it over. And who's going to say the state school board, and there's no real constitutional authority to do that, would do a better job?
We touched on crisis intervention, and that relates to another issue that has risen again relating to a tragedy that one of your colleagues in the Senate suffered recently. And, of course, you've been involved in that issue for some time. Given what happened at Virginia Tech a number of years ago, talk to us about that whole issue.
Yeah, I co-chaired with Senator Janet Howell the mental health subcommittee in 2008 following the Virginia Tech tragedy. And Governor Kane then gave us $42 million of new money. That money's been gone. That's the trouble. It has been gone. And that, I think, led indirectly to what happened with Senator Deet's family. A very tragic situation. And this Governor McDonald, in his proposed budget, put in $38 million of new money to help backfill. And it's a shame that money was taken away. The other thing is, I've been reading about how we were supposed to have a website so people would know where the beds are. Mm-hmm. That never got completed. I don't know why. Nobody has been able to explain to me why in the last 4 years they didn't complete that website. That was a priority that they should have taken care of some time ago. We still don't know exactly what happened, but we're trying to deal with, as best we can, improvements in the mental health system, because partly, as you say, what happened to Senator Deet's son and what happened to Senator Deet's and his family, it's something that should never have happened. It was preventable, and I fault the Commonwealth for not making sure that we had the website on beds and the funding that we needed to deal with situations like that.
So it's a very large problem beyond how much longer we can detain an individual against his or her will.
That's one of the proposals. It was, I think, 6 hours originally, because the sheriffs and the police said, you know, they're the ones that do the transporting. They had a limited window to provide somebody, and that's why it was done. I think it should be longer. It should be more discretionary. If somebody needs to be kept longer for further evaluation, they ought to be. But that's why it was put in. It was a, let's call it a bureaucratic reason for putting it in, to have a rigid time frame there.
Right.
And I think that was a mistake.
So we have to balance the civil liberties of the person who may be mentally disabled against public safety needs.
Yes, I mean, you don't want to keep someone, you know, unduly long, certainly. The evaluation should take place as quickly as possible, but each situation could be different, especially in the rural areas where you have to bring in healthcare providers and people who do the assessments. And sometimes in rural areas you get a lot of traveling, and so I think we should provide more flexibility.
Now, the Commonwealth settled a case with the Department of Justice a year or two ago dealing with our training centers, and I know some of them are being phased out. Tell us what's happening with that and any impact in your district.
Well, yes. Well, first of all, in Lynchburg, it's not my district, but it's very close by. The Lynchburg Training Center, I signed on to Senator Newman's bill that says before the residents are transferred out, the families would have to agree to that. And I've been critical of the one-size-fits-all approach, that we ought to get rid of all the training centers, put them all in group homes and that type of thing, because it doesn't always work. And the families that have loved ones in the training centers, it'd be devastating to some of them to take them out of this facility that's being operated very well and put them someplace else. So I think we need to deal with this issue with more sensitivity than I'm seeing sometimes.
Medicaid. There was a commission created last year, the Medicaid Innovation Reform Commission, whose charter runs through 2016. Just the other day, the governor said, General Assembly, give me the authority to settle this issue by the end of this session. I don't think that's likely to happen. However, what do you see the needs of the state are in regards to the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid expansion?
It's a shame how ultra-political and partisan this whole issue is. I happen to support the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. It's one of the great social legislations of the last century. Social Security, Medicaid, and Social Security in the 30s, Medicaid, Medicare in the 60s, and now the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. We're moving toward making sure most Americans will have some kind of health insurance coverage. And a part of that is the expansion of Medicaid. And here are the facts. Virginia is entitled to $2.1 million annually over the next 6 years, I believe is what the figures are, to expand Medicaid up to 400,000 new people and to create about 30,000 new jobs. Now, what's wrong with that? Absolutely nothing. It is an imperative. We must do this, and I was glad to see the governor say this is his #1 priority. If you don't do it, give me the authority, and I will. And I think eventually we will get there. In fact, the governor announced just today, I believe, or yesterday, I guess it was, that over 10 years, accepting Medicaid will save over $1 billion to the Commonwealth. Now, what's wrong with that? Nothing. And it's not just a matter of compassion, making sure people are covered, but it's also a matter of making sure the hospitals are paid, as opposed to the constant cost shifting, to make sure private physicians, family physicians are paid, and people now don't go to see a family physician because they don't have insurance or any kind of coverage. But it's also a matter, in our particular region, I mentioned earlier Carilion and HCA Lewis Gale. They are very important to the economic sector, to the economy of our region. They're the fastest, healthcare is the fastest growing part of the economy in the Commonwealth, and certainly in our region as well. It's very important to us. And this is critically important to the Carilion and to HCA Lewis Gale. I've talked to the presidents of both of these institutions. They desperately want, I don't like to speak for other people, but they will tell you, I'm sure, that we need Medicaid expansion. To me, it's a no-brainer. And the fact that we're fighting it tells me we're more concerned about partisan politics than we are about making sure people are covered with health care and making sure the hospitals and doctors are properly paid and make sure there's not the cost shifting. One of the reasons the health insurance premiums have been going up in recent years is the cost shifting. To Medicaid, Medicare really don't pay the full freight. They also provide, hospitals in particular, provide an awful lot of free care, indigent care, and that's shifted to people who do pay, and insurance companies in particular. So your health insurance premium includes a hidden tax to cover the uninsured right now. In addition, the Commonwealth provides several hundred millions of dollars every year to hospitals to cover the indigent care. That's going away, by the way. So if we don't expand Medicaid, the hospitals will be hit with a double whammy. No more will they get the indigent care of several hundred millions of dollars. It goes maybe $500,000, I'm not sure what it is exactly, to all the hospitals throughout the Commonwealth. That'll go away. So what's going to replace that? If it's not Medicaid, it's not going to be replaced. So we need to expand Medicaid to make sure the hospitals are properly covered. Some hospitals have already shut down. One down in Lee County shut down because it can't make it. There's one up in, I'm told, up in Winchester that is thinking about shutting down. If the Medicaid expansion doesn't come along, there'll probably be other hospitals in the rural areas in particular that may have to shut down. That's a shame. That should not happen. So I strongly support expanding Medicaid to make sure we cover as many people as possible, to make sure the hospitals and the doctors get paid for what is now indigent care, and to make sure we don't have as much cost shifting as happened, so that all of our premiums should not go up as much. They may not go down, but they won't go up as much, I would hope.
Great. We'll end it there. Thank you for being with us today, Senator John Edwards.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast, connecting Virginians to their government. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans. Thanks, John.